Alrighty, it's great to see everyone. It's wonderful to have you for this webinar. I think we have got people coming, getting stabilized. We thought of getting started. I think Anjali can let people in on the go. So I'm Mayuri, and I'm presenting this webinar today with Tina Prefrement from the City of Greater Geelong. I'll probably go into a brief intro, and then we could get started so that we could leave some time at the end for questions. So what we're going to talk about today is how we drive innovation through procurement. So the first part of it, there's a bit of a conceptual introduction that I would do, and Tina would bring some examples in through a case study that they have done and completed actually, which brings a lot of learnings and insights for us. If you could kindly mute the microphones, that would be great for the moment. Alrighty, going to the presentation. I think, yeah. As I mentioned, the first part would be more about why is it needed, why are innovations needed in a circular economy, an introduction to the procurement for innovation approach next, and then Tina would join in for the part where we discuss a case study, and we are leaving some time at the end for Q&A. As we are conducting the webinar, a little bit about our organization, Anvarta. So we are basically present in a few areas. We are at the moment functioning more as a consulting and advisory organization, and also in the process of developing an education and a knowledge hub. And there are some tools under development which are going to be released in due course as well. So this webinar is part of our knowledge, education and knowledge hub. And we have a few courses and other sort of knowledge products being released at the moment. Very briefly about the two of us. It's not very interesting maybe to talk about yourself in the beginning. Just a brief details. I'm Mayuri. I'm leading Anvarta at the moment. I have nearly 20 years experience in the areas of industrial ecology and circular economy. Worked as an industry practitioner for nearly a decade, driving organizational transformation projects in industrial ecology. And then I led a research group at Deakin University on enablers of a circular economy till I started Anvarta. And Tina is the other resource person who's joining with me here today. She's currently working at the City of Greater Geelong, has nearly 20 years of experience in the public sector in Australia and in the UK in consulting. She has expertise in simulating demand for clean tech solutions and market development of clean initiatives. And she would talk more about the groundbreaking project she has done with the City of Greater Geelong on procurement for innovation. That's it about us. Probably move to the part where we go to the real webinar. So first, if I want to basically start with why do we need innovation for a circular economy? I think probably if you're a circular economy professional or if you kind of know about it, you would agree with me that it generally involves change across a larger boundary, more systemic change. It's not something one person or one organization could do. We need to have multiple stakeholder involvement, multiple expertise involvement, and there's a need for system-wide data and information exchange. And also there's a need for innovation. So innovation comes from the perspective that we're talking about doing things differently than how we are doing it now. So it's a new way of doing economic activity. Typically, if you think of the current economic engine we are running, we are replacing it with different types of alternatives increasingly. So these alternatives could be materials. There are new ways of designing products, new ways of organizing supply chains, and also activating the reverse supply chain, new technologies, and also opening up to new ways of processing, extracting, manufacturing, and distribution. And some of these alternatives are actually not available in the market. Some are evolving, In some areas, we know that there's a gap and there's an unmet demand. So a lot of what we talk about today are also apply to the innovations or initiatives that we see and evolving, and also sometimes to innovations and initiatives we see that there's a gap, but we don't know what will come and fill that gap. So we kind of open to both in this approach. So coming back to the topic of innovations, they're typically, and also connecting into procurement. When there's an innovation, there should be demand for it. So there's a market which purchases or procures that. So in a procurement sort of a contract or a transaction, the two parties we know who are involved are the supplier and the buyer. So this is a matter of a chicken and egg question. What should come first? Should the innovation come first and then the market is created for that? Or do we have the market needing the innovation and asking for it, and therefore people produce it? So we see kind of both of this happening at the same time, and sometimes one takes precedence of the other or drives the other. But these two are kind of feeding back on one another. It's more like chicken and egg. So the key questions here are that if we think about the innovation from a supplier's point of view. So supply is the person who typically undertakes the innovation so that the market could buy that. Innovations are costly, it's risky. It's risky not only from the financial perspective, but also from the outcome perspective. We sometimes don't know whether the research and development would lead to exactly what we want. And it takes time. So typically before taking this gutload of risk for innovation, the supplier asks the market or the buyer, is there demand? Is there any opportunity for me to produce this output at a scale that is big enough for me to be profitable? The key question the supply is trying to answer here is, should I invest? Should I invest to produce scale? Should I invest to produce? Should I invest to put R&D expenses to give you the outcome you want? So this question, answering this question or these types of questions are very essential to incentivize, because these are what act as barriers in general for innovation to come to market. So what we do with the procurement for innovation approach is basically helping the suppliers address those barriers and basically create that, help them pass this chasm of why they don't do innovations. So if we think about it from a more organizational point of view, it could be the public sector who purchases the innovation, or sometimes organization to organization purchasing, which happens through B2B contracts. If you want to drive innovation, we got to have either we got to buy the process of innovation, which means we buy R&D as a service, or we got to buy the outcomes of innovation. And the three approaches that we can see how this happens, one is through pre-commercial procurement, which means purchase R&D services as a solution prior to production, where you contract somebody to do R&D for you. A more collaborative and a more long engaging way of doing that is through innovation partnerships, where there's a long-term partnership and a collaborative arrangement with the buyer and the supplier. What we are going to focus more on today is a third approach, which is public procurement for innovation, where the public sector, typically the public sector uses it substantially and significantly. The purchasing power of the public sector is used to give a demand signal so that there's an early adoption for the products. The demand for the early adoption of the products is created, and at the same time, the supplier sees the market as a large-scale place for production commercially. And if you think of how this happens through this approach, there are generally, I kind of try to categorize into 4 areas to explain it clearly. So the first one in terms of need for innovation, as I mentioned, we are talking about an unmet need. Either we see that there are things in the market evolving and developing, or we see that there's a gap in the market and we kind of need a solution to come more creatively, more innovatively from the market itself. So in communicating the unmet demand, we are asking for the outcome, not the product. So how do you get focused on the outcome? So it's basically not asking for asking to perform that need through something that is already existing or going to specify that. So if you think of heating, we want to have uniform heating in this building. We give it as an outcome. So it's up to you to buy the right type of heater to do it. It's up to you to install automatic thermal control or have another way of managing it. So we ask for uniform heating. We don't ask for a heater. If it's technology that results in no waste that we want, we don't tell the process or the type of minimization strategy to adopt. We ask for the outcome. We want this technology to not to result in waste. In the case of Tina, she will elaborate more on this. So what they wanted was long-lasting bridges, which typically comes with the need to do maintenance as the lowest. So maintenance-free bridges, which are long-lasting. So they didn't specify the material or the type of technology to use to come up with those bridges, but they rather asked for the outcome. So that's the first part. And then the innovators in the market, they're expected to be creative in producing innovations to meet that outcome. So you kind of keep it very open-ended, open and creative for people to innovate. That's the first one. And the second element is rather than having, in a typical procurement process, we have we write down what we need. It comes in a tender or an RFQ, which gets released to the market. So we kind of specify what we need in a great length of detail. So in this one, the market engagement phase starts early, and there's a lot of investment going into educating suppliers, engaging with them, and collaborating with them, because there's a collaboratively innovated solution needed sometimes. So co-collaboration or co-design, it is something that this approach encourages. And the third part is the evaluation. So in the beginning, we ask for an unmet need, and we didn't specify how it needs to be met. So our evaluation of the contract is also based on performance. I mean, it would have a cost element and a financial element, but there's a larger portion, or rather a significant portion of emphasis going into meeting that unmet need in a financially feasible way. And if the last part, the fourth element, is how we kind of help performance of this contract. So there's a part where the supply has to innovate and I would say invest on R&D. So to share that risk of innovation, sometimes there's subsidies given to the supplier. There's other forms of incentives given to the supplier. And the most significant part is, especially in a public procurement for innovation project, there's guaranteed purchasing of agreed outcomes. So if the supplier for the first time is producing something that has never been produced before, and if there's a question that once I put the investment for R&D, would a person buy this? This type of contracts facilitate the purchasing of the agreed outcome in the way that supplier seems it feasible ending the performance of the contract. So this kind of strategies or different type of elements are present to generally activate this process of innovation in the procurement for innovation type of contracts. So Tina would actually take you through the examples of each of these as to how City of Greater Geelong did that. So before I end my presentation, the last part of it is I'm coming back to the questions and the barriers, the no-goes that a supplier had in investing in R&D and basically working on an innovation. So early announcement of the innovation need, telling that we need this, we will procure it. If you put an effort into it and innovate and come up with it, it gives a strong and visible market signal of a specific demand, which kind of removes some of the insecurities the supply is having in engaging in innovation. Then, especially if it's government uses its substantial mass purchasing power, it gives a signal about the scale of future market. So if it's a product that needs a significant R&D and you need to have scale for it to be profitable, an entity like the government intervening and telling that we would need it and it's needed at scale, it's the next thing to come, or it's something that we would see as the future, that gives a strong demand signal, eliminating that risk or doubts for an investor or supplier. And the third one, guaranteed public procurement of the innovative solution. The risk of innovation is shared or lessened. So this basically, what this approach does is in a collaborative manner, sharing the risk of innovation with the supplier in an agreeable way that it provides a specific outcome that fulfills an unmet need. So I kind of gave, I think, a conceptual introduction. I'll hand over to Tina to take you through a real-life example in detail.